Indeed, this is my first opportunity to talk with a Filipino audience. I'm very sorry that I can't do it in person, but it seems that I can't be everywhere at once as much as I would like to. But I hope this is the first of many rich conversations with my friends from the Philippines. There are two challenges we must understand as educators in the 21st century. Fundamental changes that have taken place at a stunningly rapid pace. Number one is the transformation of work. In more and more countries, work today is being transformed from something that you do as a routine, meaning that you do the same kind of work today that you did yesterday and last week, to what we call non-routine intellectual knowledge work. Work that requires you to think very differently, to solve different kinds of problems, to innovate and to work in very creative ways. Increasingly, there's a new set of skills all students need in order to get any kind of job that pays more than a minimum wage, in order to have a good career, in other words. So that's one fundamental change. What must we do to prepare our young people for the rapidly changing nature of work in the 21st century? The second challenge is what I would call the rapid commoditization of knowledge. Show of hands, how many of you have been on the Khan Academy website? Raise your hands. Do you know this website? So you haven't seen it very much yet in your country. It is a website built by an American who is offering more than 3,000 video lessons on all kinds of topics related to science, to history, to economics, and to mathematics. 3,000 videos, about 6,000 students a month, 6 million students a month from all over the world are logging on to the Khan Academy website for these free lessons. They don't cost anything. And many teachers tell me, he does a better job teaching these subjects in his videotaped lessons than what they can do. So in many countries now, we're seeing something called the flipped classroom, where these video lessons are assigned as homework so that teachers can then work in very different ways in the classroom with our students. So suddenly the idea of having more knowledge than the person next to you is no longer the rare and special thing that it once was. In fact, it seems to me, because knowledge is growing exponentially, is changing constantly, it's on every internet-connected device, that the world cares less and less about how much you know, because that knowledge is changing. It's on everybody has access to the same knowledge suddenly. What the world cares far more about is what you can do with what you know. And what that requires us to develop students' skill and will. These are the really important qualities we must develop with our students. What are the most important skills today, and what do they see as the gaps? And I came to discern that there's a set of core competencies every young person around the world must be well on the way to mastering before completing secondary school, not just to get and keep a good job in this new knowledge economy, but also equally important to be a lifelong learner and to be an active and informed citizen in the 21st century. I call them the 7 survival skills for careers, college, and citizenship. And I wrote about them in my last book, The Global Achievement Gap. So very briefly, 7 survival skills are the following. Number 1, critical thinking and problem solving. Critical thinking is the ability to ask really good questions. Critical thinking begins with the ability to ask the right questions. Problem identification is to them more important than problem solving. Because if you haven't identified the right problem, you're not going to be able to solve it. Number 2, collaboration across networks and leading by influence. More and more work is being done collaboratively, and in more and more workplaces, teams are expected to figure out what the problem is and to work on it without a supervisor telling them what to do. Teams are led by peers. Number 3, agility and adaptability. The pace of change, the complexity of problems really favors those who are far more agile and adaptable. Number 4, initiative and entrepreneurialism. What would that person be in our schools who would have missed 2 or 3 out of 10? It'd be a C or a B student, not a hero. I'm going to come back to this issue of failure in a few moments. The 5th goal is effective oral and written communication, and it is the #1 complaint of both college teachers and employers around the world. The 6th survival skill is accessing and analyzing information, and as we've been describing, it is just a critical competency with the amount of information growing exponentially, changing constantly, and on every single internet-connected device. The last survival skill is curiosity and imagination. Now, have any of you read Dan Pink's book, A Whole New Mind? Raise your hands. A few of you have. Yeah, I see. Good. Well, you know, he describes the importance of these right brain skills, curiosity, imagination, creativity, empathy, as critical in a world where we have more and more sophisticated consumers demanding more and better sophisticated products that are more artistic, products and services that are more creative and show more empathy. But I've come to see the importance of curiosity and imagination not as a part of a consumer economy at all, but as a part of something very different. Fundamentally, to be an innovator, in my definition, is to be a creative problem solver. You could be a problem solver without creativity, and that would not lead to innovation. Conversely, you could be very creative, but not able to solve problems, and that would not lead to innovation. So it's putting those two ideas together, a creative problem solver that in fact leads to innovation. And I'm not just talking about breakthrough disruptive innovations, I'm also talking about incremental innovations. The idea of incrementally improving products and services, making them more energy efficient, for example, and finding ways of improving quality of life in whatever it is we do. So the question that I became really interested in is, what do we have to do differently as parents, as teachers, as mentors, and as employers to develop the capacities of many, many more young people to be creative problem solvers? So I was very, very struck by how these successful young innovators were far differently motivated than most students. So I tried to go back and see what their parents and teachers had done to foster and encourage these intrinsic motivations that we're all born with. We're all born naturally curious, creative, and so on. So what had these parents and teachers done? And there again, I found a pattern. Both parents and teachers encouraged play, passion, and purpose in a kind of developmental arc. Parents encouraging much more exploratory, discovery-based play, fewer toys, toys without batteries, limiting screen time, encouraging kids to get outside. As one mother said to me, these kids have to sometimes get bored in order to learn how to get unbored. So that's the discovery-based play. But at the same time, these parents tried to provide their young people, as they grew older, with a rich buffet of opportunities that helped them to figure out what it was they were most interested in. What did they want to learn? What did they want to do? What did they want to explore, become better at? What was their passion? These parents valued students, their children, finding and discovering their passion far more than merely achieving well in school. The third, purpose. What was fascinating to me was to discover that as these young people pursued their passions, encouraged by both parents and teachers, those passions changed, they morphed, they evolved, they didn't stay the same. There's sometimes students would discover, no, it isn't really that I want to be a scientist. I think I maybe want to be a computer scientist. Or No, it's not computer science. It's actually engineering. So their interests would evolve as they went to college and beyond. But in every case, they matured into a deeper sense of purpose, wanting to in some way give back or make a difference.